right, let's hit the field.
Welcome back, everybody. We have got a fun and busy episode today. We're going to touch on a wide variety of topics. We'll be talking with MLB insider Robert Murray about Christian Walker, one of the potential first base candidates for the Yankees this winter, and somebody who he calls the most underrated player in baseball. We'll also talk about one of the legitimately dumbest ideas I've ever heard of in my life, the golden at-bat rule. Plus, we got a conversation with Clint Pasillas about Juan Soto's character. We'll also have Scott Braun of Foul Territory stopping by to preview what I think is going to be a wild and crazy winter meetings. All of that and more coming up next. This is Pinstripe Territory.
Just wanted to talk, that's all.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. And if you're new, welcome for the first time to Pinstripe Territory, the official Yankees podcast of the Foul Territory Network. Hope you are ready for some winter meeting action, because I know I am. I have been gearing up, getting my adrenaline going by watching some classic fights. I've been watching Ali versus Foreman for about the last half an hour. What a fight. Rumble in the Jungle. Happy 1-year anniversary to Juan Soto. He was traded to the Yankees 1 year ago. It seems like a good night to announce that you're coming back, right? As Action VJ says, can we get the signing live? I promise you, if Juan Soto signs while we're on the air and I find out about it, we will cover it. I should keep an eye on Twitter just in case. I will get alerts on my watch and phone and stuff like that. But I'm still in the camp of bringing back Juan Soto just because I think, a generational talent like that. And it's not just so much Soto, but the tandem of Judge and Soto together is special, right? But I'm also going to look at the bright side. Like, I can tell you guys ahead of time, it's not going to be cope or whatever the kids say. It's going to be, realism that if he does sign somewhere else, perhaps the Mets, perhaps the Red Sox, perhaps the Dodgers or the Blue Jays, look, I'm not going to be totally disappointed in getting 4 or 5 players for what the price of Juan Soto could have been. So, we'll get to all of that. But first, I want to talk about this golden at-bat rule, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of in my life. And I've heard some dumb stuff. And Rob Manfred, the commissioner, has said some crazy stuff and implemented some crazy stuff over the years. He called the World Series trophy a chunk of metal. And he basically implemented 7-inning doubleheaders and this ghost runner thing by caveat. We got the pitch clock now. We made a lot of changes to the game of baseball. But this one takes the cake. They're floating this rule called the golden at-bat, which means at any point during a game, right? Any point throughout the game, the manager could send up any player they want to hit. So you could have Aaron Judge hit twice in a row in the 9th inning if you want to, right? He'd basically get 162 extra at-bats or 150 at-bats. You're going to usually go with Aaron Judge there. It would destroy stats. It would screw with strategy. I mean, I just don't... Look, if you wanted to send Judge up twice in the 9th inning, I get it. It's great for fans. Or if you wanted to send somebody clutch up like Giancarlo Stanton, I get it. But that's not baseball. That is completely alien to the structure of baseball. It's a team sport. And you're putting one guy above the team at that point, and it's just a dumb rule. It just screws with strategy, and it screws with the momentum of the game. And even if it didn't do all of those things, it would still be incredibly stupid. There was a dude who quit his job and went to live with wild bears, and he ended up getting mauled and eaten by one of them. And they identified him from his wristwatch. That was pretty stupid. That was a stupid idea, an all-time bad idea. Every year, dozens of people fall off of cliffs taking selfies. Those are bad ideas. Shaking vending machines to try and shake loose a Crunch Bar, and it falls on him and kills him and crushes him. All bad ideas. All just minimally better than the golden at-bat. There was a guy who dropped his cell phone to the bottom of a porta-john, a porta-potty, and stuck his face through the toilet bowl to get down there in the nastiness to try and retrieve it, and he got stuck. And when the paramedics got there, he was ass up and he was close to suffocating from the fumes. That was pretty stupid. It was only minimally more stupid than the golden at-bat rule. And look, if you drop your cell phone in a porta-john, just go to the AT&T store, man. Tell them it got stolen. It's done. It's gone. Anyway, all of these people and ideas, dumber than the golden at-bat, but only by a little. So there's not a lot that would make me distance myself from baseball. I've been watching this game my whole life. It's how I spend my summers. It's how I make a living now. But I would definitely lose a lot of interest if they implemented that rule. I think it's pretty dumb. Let me know what you think in the comments about the golden at bat. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Christian Walker. He is one of the options at first base for the Yankees. I've been maintaining that Cody Bellinger would be the perfect fit. Left-handed bat, spray hitter, good defender, younger. I'm not sure that they want to take on the finances. We'll see. He makes $27 million. The Cubs are trying to get rid of him. But if they lose Juan Soto, they're going to need a left-handed bat. And so I think that Bellinger is at least one option. He doesn't have the power of Soto, but he's a good hitter. Christian Walker's a really good player, and I like him, and he would be a nice fallback option for me if you can't get Bellinger, if you don't like the medicals with Bellinger or whatever. But he's, as you're about to hear, one of the most underrated players in baseball. I haven't watched a lot of the Diamondbacks, but I did see some of the playoff run a couple of years ago. Dude's a imposing hitter. He's got a great swing. He's a great defender. And so I wanted to talk with, an expert who's local, who's seen him play a lot. And so I invited Robert Murray, who's a National Baseball insider and a writer for Fansided, onto the show. And we had a little recording session yesterday. I'm going to play it for you now. It's about 10 minutes. And it's basically a breakdown of Christian Walker as a player. And then I'll be right back here. We'll talk a little bit of Juan Soto with Clint Pasillas. As a local observer, I wanted to get your perspective on one of the bigger free agents, and that is Christian Walker, somebody that Yankees fans are interested in. There's obviously a hole at first base. They basically let it be known through one of their reporters yesterday that Anthony Rizzo is not coming back. So that opens up first base. They got some prospects, but I think that they might want to go shopping in the deeper end of the pool, especially if they miss out on Juan Soto. So I was hoping you could kind of shed some light on who Christian Walker is at this point in his career.
As far as Christian Walker goes, he is perhaps the most underrated player in baseball. And the fact that he is getting such little attention this offseason is kind of the story of his career. And if you look at him, he can hit 30-plus homers with ease. He is a very good defender at first base. He's a very strong locker room guy, someone that was really highly respected in the Arizona organization. And he is someone, to me, is worthy of a contract worth 20 or more million a year. And whether, how long that contract is kind of remains to be seen. He played last year at the age of 33, so he's in the back half of his career for sure. So I'm wondering, does he get a 3-year deal? Does he get a 4-year deal? My guess is probably he gets about a 3-year contract for around $20 million a year, which is, that's a really strong contract, but it's not a long-term, it would not be a long-term deal, which would not handicap the Yankees, for a significant amount of time, which I think that flexibility would be good for them, especially if they do miss out on Juan Soto. But to me, I think you're absolutely spot on about it. I think Walker would be a perfect target for them.
Yeah, they were paying Josh Donaldson $25 million for the last couple of years. He did practically nothing. So, you say 3 years, $20 million per. That's a little less than Luis Severino got from the A's. So, that's a hell of a deal for a guy. Just looking at his StatCast numbers, the thing that impresses me is the bat speed. He's in the top 11 percentile of the league in bat speed, despite being in his mid-30s. And, if you can get the bat around quick, you're going to have some pop. We've seen him hit some absolute bombs. I see a lot of range there at first base, but I haven't had a chance to watch him play defensively. Does the eye test match the fielding run value, something that doesn't always occur?
Yeah, it absolutely matches the eye test. He is, to me, he's a complete ball player. I mean, you wonder how exactly he's going to end up faring in his age 34, 35, 36 seasons, or however long a team would potentially sign him. But to me, the player that he is in Arizona, I'm optimistic that he can keep that going next year and beyond. And like, just offensively, defensively, he to me is everything that I would want in a ball player. And if you don't go out and get a Juan Soto type, or if you don't go out and get a Willie Adames or someone like that, if you can go out and get Christian Walker, maybe fans are like, oh, we ended up not maybe we ended up struggling this offseason. They're kind of down going into the season. But once the season starts, I think they really see the presence that he brings and just how good he actually is.
Who else do you think could be a good fit for him? I mean, I don't know what teams are out there looking for a first baseman, but you would
Yeah.
imagine that anybody could use a bat like this and who can obviously pick it too. So does he have kind of a robust market, or is it just a couple of teams?
Yeah, I think his market is going to be robust. And if you can look at it, you can see. I think the Seattle Mariners make a lot of sense because if you look at them, they need a bat in the worst way. They need multiple bats, and they've explored the market. How much money they have to spend remains to be seen. I know Scott Braun, every time I'm on foul territory, he always reminds me that the Mariners do not spend, or that they will not be spending on a bat of that caliber. So we'll see about that. But I think they make a lot of sense. The San Francisco Giants have been shopping Lamont Wade Jr. for the most part of the offseason. So if they're able to move on from him, then I think a guy like Christian Walker could make a lot of sense there as well. Maybe the Houston Astros could make sense. Although that being said, their number one priority is Alex Bregman. They have made
Yeah.
that abundantly clear. They've made offers to him. No deal has gotten done there yet. But then if you look at it for next year, they got one of their starters that they need to extend, and then they also got Kyle Tucker, who's entering the final year of his deal. So they got to be real careful with their finances in Houston. So of all the candidates, or of all the teams that I just mentioned, there's questions that come with each one of them, which could end up really opening up the door for the Yankees or any other team really kind of pounce and get Christian Walker. Then
I suppose the only question I have as a Yankees fan is you're replacing a left-handed bat, right? We're going to lose Rizzo, possibly Soto, unfortunately, and Alex Verdugo. So that's three big left-handed bats. How are his splits? Like, is he somebody who's neutralized by tough righties, or is he pretty much consistent versus righties or lefties alike?
yeah, he's pretty much balanced, which is a really good thing. So with what you end up getting from Christian Walker is he's a very balanced guy. So you can have him in the lineup in every different scenario. So, I got my dog biting my ankle. Come on, buddy. What's up, buddy? Yeah, I got a puppy, so I was going through the puppy stage right now. But he is a very complete player. Like, to me, there's not many times you'll find me like really just so high on a player in so many different ways. But offensively, he's very good against right-handed and left-handed pitchers. Very, very balanced there. But then you look at him defensively, he's very strong there. Locker room guy, very strong. I know that coaching staff and that front office is very high on him, and I would not rule out a reunion in Arizona. It just could come down to price, but yeah, he's just a very, very strong, complete player in my eyes.
I want to hit you up on another guy who's with the Diamondbacks right now for the moment, and that is Jordan Montgomery. Could you see him get moved at the trade deadline? I was a big fan of Jordan Montgomery when he was with the Yankees. He got traded for Harrison Bader. I didn't love the deal at the time because Bader was in a walking boot, didn't play for 6 weeks. And then
Oh,
Monty went on to have a great finish with the Cardinals and then obviously a fantastic job with the Texas Rangers. He switches sides of the World Series after last season, or after the 2023 season. Did not have a great year. Obviously, the owner had some choice words about that contract. Do you think he's going to get moved?
I think it almost has to happen. I mean, you never see an owner speak out like that ever. And I remember, so I'll even go back to that when the Yankees ended up trading Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader. I thought that trade was fake. That was because it came across my desk and it had not been reported yet. And I sent a text to somebody who would know. I'm like, hey, is this right? And all of a sudden, like he's like, yeah. And he told me that I could send it. I'm like, and all of a sudden my phone just blows up and Twitter's like, what the F? Like, it was crazy. And then obviously has all the success there. And last offseason was really frustrating for him. But then he he struggles this year, and the Arizona Diamondbacks' owner, Ken Kendrick, just absolutely blasts him. And to me, that was one of the strongest, harshest comments I've ever heard from a baseball owner since I got into baseball. And after comments like that, you cannot keep Jordan Montgomery. Like you have to trade him, and you can use that money saved from trading Montgomery. They'll have to eat some of that contract, I would imagine. But any savings there would be good for them. Could allow them to keep Christian Walker or go out and sign a different free agent. But to me, Montgomery's pitch his last game in Arizona. I do not see any way that he comes back next year.
I'm thinking Marcus Stroman for Jordan Montgomery. Who says no?
That's maybe. I think it's a good trade, actually. It's making me. I mean, it's interesting. At least made me think.
I'll throw you the worst comments I've ever heard from an owner. This was George Steinbrenner. Obviously, he had the Mr. May thing with Dave Winfield when he had a tough October. But when Hideki Irabu was with the Yankees, he failed to cover first base during a spring training game, and he called him a fat pussy toad. And then, and then he said after the game he was going to give all of his Hideki Irabu T-shirts to the Sisters for the Blind. So that's sort of the bar. Yeah, that's the bar.
Stories. It's crazy. There was another one. There was a pitcher. Was it David Wells who ended up coming up? He ended up mentioning a story about his interaction with Steinbrenner. It was either David Wells or somebody. I can't remember who it was, but it was just he did not hold back. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he didn't pull any punches. We miss him. He was entertaining. But Robert Murray, thanks for lending your insight. It's going to be an interesting winter meetings. I saw your tweet that said once Soto falls, all hell breaks loose. I hope you're prepared for a week without sleep, my friend, because I'm preparing for the same thing.
Oh, I'm absolutely prepared. This is my time where it's my Christmas, is what I like to call it. There's going to be very little sleep had. There's going to be many conversations had, but I'm so here for it. I would recommend staying tuned to my Twitter because hopefully I got some big stuff in the hopper.
All right, we got some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in, Clay Holmes, Yankees fan favorite, obviously facetious there, has an agreement with the New York Mets. So we bid farewell to Clay Holmes. Adios, tip of the cap, and he is history. As for Christian Walker, I like a lot of the things that Robert Murray had to say about him, that he's underrated. We just had a little conversation in the chat where someone said 250 average is not good. It used to be not good, but now it's above league average, to which that person retorted something rude, and they are now history. Just a reminder, we go by the living room rule here, rudeness not tolerated. So anyway, Christian Walker, definitely an option. Let's talk a little bit about the man of the hour, Juan Soto. There is a very good chance that he's going to make his decision over the next few days. I'm hearing now, and this number has already changed, all of the bids by all of the teams are now over $700 million. And he's going to have to choose here over the next few days. There's a non-zero chance that it could happen during this very podcast episode. And if it does, we'll have the breaking news. But I've seen a lot of commenters that are just hating on Juan Soto for not having signed yet or for taking his time, wanting to get paid. I've seen a lot of F Soto. I've seen a lot of people saying he's a mercenary, he's a bum, this and that. And I'm just like, hold up. If you were in his position, okay, and you had to pick what company you're going to work at, and a city to work in for the next 15 years of your life, the prime of your career, from ages 26 through age 40 or 42, whatever. And you've got companies from LA, 2 from New York, 1 from Boston, 1 from Toronto, all offering you top dollar to come work for them. Wouldn't you want to take your time with that life decision? Wouldn't you want to figure out, things about the city, things about the company, things about the organization? What are the school districts like? What's the weather like year round? Things like that. The money's going to be enormous no matter where he goes. But I do not blame him for wanting to look at each team's farm system, each team's clubhouse, each team's perks, the school districts, the commute, all of that stuff. It all has to factor in. But I feel like the money combined with how long it's taking to make his decision, it's rubbing some fans the wrong way, and not just Yankees fans. I had a conversation with Clint Pasillas of Dodgers territory and of all Dodgers. He is a Dodgers fan, so don't hate on him too much. He's a buddy of mine. And we just kind of talked a little bit about who Juan Soto is as a person, as a clubhouse personality, things like that. It was on Clint's podcast, and it's about 12 minutes long, and he basically told me, you can use it for your show. I think people will enjoy this conversation. So here is me and Clint talking Juan Soto. I'll be back in about 10 minutes, and we'll talk about Max Fried and Corbin Burns. A lot more to come here on Pinstripe Territory.
All right, guys, you see him there on the screen. This is producer, director extraordinaire on the Foul Territory Network, host of Pinstripe Territory, someone I really enjoy watching here on this YouTube machine. That is Mr. Derek Lewandowski, and if I was more prepared, I would have had the button ready for you to give you the clap. But listen. First, thanks for coming on. Thanks for helping me try to answer this question about Juan Soto. But first, I got to ask you, Dodgers fan, Yankees fan, how has the offseason been treating you in the wake of this World Series?
I tell you what, I feel like you ever see Rocky 2 where Rocky just feels defeated and he doesn't want to train and he doesn't want to do anything? That's how I felt for about the first month. That's for maybe the first couple of weeks. I just felt lethargic. I didn't want to do anything. I was depressed. I was sad. I can't believe Judge dropped that ball. I can't believe we didn't cover first base. What's going on here? I can't believe Freeman walked us off in game one. And then I started to come out of it. Once we start talking next year, start talking future, it's like, okay, turn the page. It's a whole new season. Now we got to fight Ivan Drago. It's time to fight. It's time to, it's time to get back in the gym. That type of thing. So, I've been dealing with it. I've been playing some MLB The Show and living out my championship dreams that way.
Yeah, it's get up, Rock, come on. Yeah, I understand that. Trust.
I ain't get no bell.
And after
son of a bitch.
And after the last couple of off seasons for Dodgers fans, I mean, early off seasons, at least, Yankees made it to the World Series. They've been good. They've been struggling at different times. They should have been better. You have some foundational pieces there, but also, hey, Yanks missing a big piece right now out in free agency. We don't need to pussyfoot around this. We know the reason I brought you here. We got to talk Juan Soto. I'll set the stage a little bit here. We understand, $600 million, north of $600 million is the report, possibly 12 years longer, assumed opt-outs after 3 or 4 years. Yankees in the mix, Mets in the mix, Boston Blue Jays in the mix, Dodgers also remain in the mix, and they're all figured to be in the mix according to multiple reports. For Dodgers fans, there's this narrative that's grown, and we were talking just a second before hitting the record button here. There's this narrative that has grown since fans were chanting future Dodger to Juan Soto at the 2022 All-Star game at Dodger Stadium. They hate him. There's a lot of fans that hate Juan Soto. They don't want to see Juan Soto in a Dodger uniform. They think he's some sort of clubhouse poison, clubhouse cancer, that he'll ruin the team in this great era, the Shohei Ohtani era, where they're supposed to go out and win 150 World Series and all that. We saw Tommy Kahnle today on Foul tell the guys, like, look, he's a great guy. He's awesome, great clubhouse guy, blew me away, great teammate, great player. Yeah, you're probably going to say that, especially when your team is trying to bring him back. I need to know, listen, you covered this team, covered the Yankees all season long so well as you do there on Pinstripe Territory, formerly New York Yankees or NYY Recap. Give me some insight. What's your taste? Bad phrasing of Juan Soto, the player, the person in the clubhouse.
Sure.
And I can understand too, like even after that loss, like he has to switch on his Scott Boras cap a little bit. Some of the things he had in his post game scrum with media, not to I want to focus right now. No, we're already looking forward to the offseason, looking forward to free agency. But yeah, I want some taste, some thoughts here on Juan Soto.
So let me start by saying the New York media is always looking for conflict within any of the clubhouses of any of the New York teams. You talk about the rivalry between Gehrig and Ruth going back that far, and then Mantle and Maris in the 61 season where they're both chasing down Ruth's record. And then it was, Reggie and Thurman in the 70s. And then, Jeter and A-Rod. And usually where there's some smoke, there's some fire. You find out that, there were a lot of rivalries at times between these guys. You saw none of that this year with Judge and Soto. Apparently there's been rumors that there was something between, Soto and, Tatis or Machado, but it seems like that was kind of overblown because all I saw from Juan Soto was a great teammate. Every time the camera would pan to him in the dugout, he was smiling and laughing with somebody. And, he's a guy as a player who, we know what he is offensively. He's an amazing offensive talent. He's got a great arm in right field. The only chinks in his armor are that he thinks he's faster than he is. So that leads to a lot of times getting thrown. I had the same problem. I was slow, but I was like, man, but he would get thrown out a lot on the bases, stupidly. And then also, he's not a great defender, especially going back on the ball. I thought the Yankees really missed out by not playing him deeper. They would have him played kind of shallow to maximize his throwing arm. He threw a lot of guys out at second, a lot of guys out at home, but he's not good at going back on the ball. It led to some triples. We saw one in the World Series. So while he's a great player and a great teammate, I've been hung up all winter about whether or not it's really the Yankees' best interest to spend $600 million on this guy when you got so many other big contracts. So while I'm rooting for the Yankees to sign him, it'll be great for me. It'll be great for my show. It'll be a lot. It'll be very fun next year to award him Player of the Game 40 times or so. But if they lose him, I think there's a chance that the Yankees could reassemble an even better team by spreading some money around, by going to get a Max Fried and maybe, somebody else. But make no mistake, he is an excellent player and an excellent clubhouse guy. I didn't see any hint of, a cocky attitude. Mm-hmm. Some guys don't handle the New York media well. Whenever he had a bad game, which was rare, he would own up to it. He would stand in front of his locker and take the questions. He was never ducking out. He wasn't one of these guys who posts stupid stuff on social media. He posts pictures of like his gaming setup. Like he's a gamer. He's not going to go out. He's not Doc Gooden going out and doing blow at 3 a.m. in Queens. He's not that guy, right? He's a kid who's into gaming and hitting baseballs. And there's really not a lot to that. And keep in mind, 26 years old. Clint, who were you at 26 years old? Were you a finished product? I know I wasn't.
Absolutely not. I was a bad man at 26.
He's going to grow as a human being, and I think a lot of the decision that he's making right now is who does he want to grow with? What organization does he want to be a part of his legacy? Because you have to think in terms of more than just your salary when you're talking about your next 15 years of your career, right? Yeah. You have to consider, where do I want to raise my family? Where do I, what are the tax situations like? What's my distance like to the ballpark? Do I have to, drive from Connecticut to get to, or can I live in, the suburbs of Toronto and have a 5-minute walk to the stadium? That type of thing. So there's a lot to consider.
With the Dodgers, listen, you can be 5 minutes away. It's still going to be 30 minutes away because of traffic. We know the Dodgers figured out also how to just get rid of the whole tax situation with signing bonuses and deferrals and all of that. But yeah, that's the main thing I want to know. And we know the talent is there, and everything we've heard since that World Series about the Yankees, everybody knew. You just had to wait for them to kind of, as Chris Taylor said, shit down their own leg. I've been trying to tell people who complain about the defense and all of that, Juan Soto will be a better player. He'll be a better defensive player. The StatCast numbers will go from the deepest blues to maybe a nice, very soft red if he's in Dodger blue because of how they set their players up for success on the field. There's coaches there that tell them, hey, maybe you should go here. Here's a little card. You should stand here. This is where this player hits, and this is how this pitcher is going to try to pitch to him, all that. He would be a better player in Dodger blue. But going back to another thing you said, this is where I feel people are trying to talk themselves out of like Juan Soto, or maybe trying not to get hurt. Like, I'm if I, ask this girl out and she rejects me, whatever, she was a bitch anyways, it's like
preemptive cope.
It's preemptive copium for sure right there. And you could say, the team is a lot better, reallocating those assets other places. We know the Yankees need a first baseman, probably need a 3B. We'll need an outfielder if Juan Soto doesn't return, need some pitching help. And, $600 million over 12 years or whatever can help, fill a lot of those cracks. And the same with Dodgers fans, like 600 on top of a $700 million deal and a 325. And there's a lot of money going around. And, we love to say it's not our money and this team prints money or whatever. But at some point, something's going to break, something's going to give. And it's going to be a problem having all of those pieces. And then, a guy in his late 30s still trying to play either, at that point, DH or whatever the hell it is. I think Juan Soto can hit late into his 30s, but when you're talking about him defensively and on the base paths and then whatever, like those are things you can quantify. Yeah. You could look at the StatCast, you could try to get him better on those, but it's the clubhouse thing. I want people to understand we're making up this narrative. Yeah, you're making up this narrative because he wore a Padres uniform for a year and a half. I think that's what it is. And the stink of Manny Machado, Jerickson Profar, Fernando Tatis. I think that's what Dodgers fans are really, really, sinking their claws into and holding on to. At least the fans that don't want Soto. The sentiment. Again, he lacks class. Yeah. He lacks character. You say no. You poo-poo on that.
He's a really great kid. He's a smart kid. When Scott Boras, and a lot of what comes out of Scott Boras's mouth is BS. When Scott Boras talked about him, he said he's a really methodical thinker, and I agree with that 100%. You can see it in his at-bats. He's going up there with a plan, and he's thinking through every pitch. He's playing chess up there, and I don't think you can be like that as a player without being like that as a person, right? It's like you can't just get on the field and just magically have a super high baseball IQ. And in terms of the other facets of his game, he gets compared to Ted Williams because he was a great hitter. And Kratz had a great point today on Foul Territory. He said, Ted Williams wrote a book on hitting called The Science of Hitting. He didn't write anything about fielding, and nobody cares. You get Ted Williams because he can hit. You get Juan Soto because he's a generational bat. And I'll tell you what, if you guys get him, you're going to really enjoy those mini battles. Those go back and watch the at bat that won the Yankees the pennant against the Guardians. It was Tanner Bybee, I believe, was pitching. And it was an 8-pitch at bat, maybe 7 pitches. And you could see that Soto was trying to get him to throw the high fastball. He was like, I'm gonna spit on anything that's down low because it's gonna be breaking, or I'm gonna hit it on the ground. Anything that was up, if it wasn't up enough, he was almost intentionally swinging late just to spoil it. And he wanted that pitch right here. He said, I'm going to get under it. I'm going to put backspin on it. And you could see him. You could see this unfolding in his mind. And I must have watched that at bat 10 times this offseason in its entirety. And it's one of the most professional at bats I've ever seen. And like I said, kid's all smiles. He's not going to be out partying with strippers. Yeah. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. All right. We got some news on that Clay Holmes deal. Apparently the deal is 3 years, $38 million. This via Jeff Passan with an opt-out after the second year. There's been some talk that Clay Holmes could work as a starting pitcher. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Mets. As for Juan Soto, I think we're going to get a discussion over the next couple of days between him and the Yankees, and he will let them know. And, it's going to come down to Yankees, Red Sox. I don't think that the Dodgers are really that into it. I think the Mets are serious, and I think that's ultimately going to be his landing spot. And I think that the Blue Jays will have one of the highest offers, but I honestly don't think he wants to play in Canada. Nobody wants to play in Canada. So, I'm still predicting he'll go to the Mets, but we'll see. We got another interview here coming up with Scott Braun where we'll talk about Soto and some other things. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Max Fried and Corbin Burnes. The Yankees have been linked to both of these guys in recent days, and they are the two best starting pitchers on the market, right? And if the Yankees are trying to go in a different direction where more run prevention to make up for some of the offense that you're going to lose with Soto gone, I could see them going after one of these guys. I really like Max Fried as a pitcher. I heard one of the New York beat writers, I can't remember which one, I think it was perhaps Joel Sherman, describe him as Jimmy Key, right? And if you guys remember Jimmy Key from the 90s, he was essential to that team. So let's go ahead and take a look at the StatCast numbers for Max Fried. First, the traditional numbers, 29 starts, 11-10 record, 3.25 ERA. Before that, you see back-to-back seasons with a sub-3 ERA, 2.48 in 22, 2.55 in 23. Just 14 starts last year. Not quite a strikeout an inning, 166 strikeouts in 174 and a third innings. He throws from the left side. He's a big, skinny, tall lefty, 6'4", 190. He's 30 years old, and he is well above average and everything. You see the StatCast numbers, pitching run value, 76th percentile, fastball run value, 79th percentile. The fastball velo won't blow you away. It's at 93.8 on average, but he spots it well. About league average in terms of walks, but he keeps the ball off of the barrel. 89th percentile. He throws that cutter a lot. Hard hit percentage way up there. Ground ball percentage way up there. So he changes speeds. He mixes pitches. I think he could be one of these crafty lefties who does very, very well in Yankee Stadium. Now, Corbin Burnes. We saw him with the Orioles this year. Obviously, a former Cy Young Award winner. Bigger guy, different type of pitcher than Max Fried. 6'3", 245 pounds. He's 30 years old, 12-8 in 22, 2.94 ERA, 243 strikeouts in 202 innings. In 23, 10-8, 3.39 with the Brewers. Got traded to the Orioles this year, helped them basically stay in the race until very, very late in the season. 15-9 record, 2.92 ERA, 32 starts. Worth noting, also a Scott Boras client. Now, the one thing that concerns me about Burnes, and this might not be a huge concern because he's throwing the cutter more, is that the strikeouts have dropped every year. You go back 2 years, 243 strikeouts. Last year, 200 strikeouts. This year, 181. And the whip, walks and hits per innings pitched, has gone in the opposite direction of what you're looking for. 0.97 in 22, 1.07 in 23, and 1.10 this year. Now, still very good, still very, very good, but trending out of his prime. Now, you look at the pitch usage. He throws the cutter 45% of the time. It's on average 95 miles an hour. Also got a good curveball, good slider, changeup, sinker, and a sweeper. He's a really good guy. He's been on foul territory a number of times, and I would have no complaints about bringing him in, but it worries me bringing in a guy who's, on the wrong side of 30 and a power pitcher, because power pitchers lose arm speed as they get older. Everybody loses arm speed as they get older. So let me know in the comments if there's one or the other that you are hoping the Yankees pick up. I personally, if I were Cashman and I lose out on Juan Soto, I go out and I get Max Fried, among others. And that's something that I wanted to talk about with Scott Braun of Foul Territory. Now, Scott is a colleague of mine. We work together every single day. And we're going to just talk a little bit about Juan Soto. We're going to put some of the names up on the screen. We're going to talk about the Soto contract. We're going to talk about the winter meetings, all that good stuff. So joining me now as I load up the video for a quick, I'd say 15-minute discussion is Scott Braun of Foul Territory. I kind of have a theory about this year's winter meetings that I want to throw at you, and tell me if you disagree with this. But if I'm an executive at Major League Baseball and I watch last year's winter meetings unfold in the way it did with practically nothing happening, I've got advertisers that are probably pretty ticked that their logo isn't on the billboard behind the guys doing the press conferences. You're not seeing water bottles on tables with the Aquafina logo or the Monster Energy or whatever. And I have to reassure my advertisers there's going to be some action this year. So for the past couple of weeks, I've probably been on the phone to some agents like, hey, we got to move the needle this year. And to some executives of the high dollar, hey, maybe hold off if you're going to announce something a couple of days ahead of time. If you got a deal worked off, maybe just stick it in a folder for a couple of days and let's have a crazy winter meetings. Do you agree with that conspiracy theory?
I agree with half of it. I'll go half in. Okay. I think those are conversations that come up at the GM meetings. Hey guys, last year, not enough. How do we stir this up more? And it doesn't always have to be hard and fast rules, because ultimately the GMs, the president of baseball operations, have bosses, and their bosses can say, let's get this done. I'll give you the easiest example that just came up. Luis Severino signs. 5 seconds later, they release, hey, season tickets are going to be on sale on Monday for the Sacramento A's. That is on purpose. They got that deal done at that time on purpose. So that plays to what you're talking about. At the same time, it's not the front office's job, as in the GM and the POBO, to make a move because it's going to help the ad dollars for MLB. It was the same problem that plagued the sport for a while with certain rules. The Theo Epsteins of the world are like, cool, I'm going to value this. I'm also going to tell my catcher to call timeout every 5 seconds because we think there's an advantage to that. That's bad for the game. So 50-50. It's getting talked about, but not enforced.
Yeah, but I still think we're going to have a crazy minute. I think somebody wants to make a splash. Yeah.
I think that's timing. I think that's just Juan Soto wanting to sign at this point and not wait until January. That will then cause a ripple effect. This market's way better than it was last year. But you're right. And we've gotten a ton of questions at Foul Territory. Hey, why aren't you guys going to be at winter meetings? One of the reasons why it isn't the sexiest thing for advertisers right now. And there's not a guarantee that a bunch of stuff's going to happen. So it's cool to be amongst your friends and colleagues, and we'll be there in the future. But that was the one event we looked at and said, hey, this is expensive for us to be at. And the general public of advertisers are not that enamored by it right now because there's not a guarantee of action.
And speaking of Juan Soto, there's that professional segue you made just leading us into that topic. You made your prediction today. It's a prediction that I've heard a lot of people make. Buster Olney was on this very show, and he predicted it. Where's he going to land?
16 years, $701 million to the New York Mets. I think the Mets have been the high bid the whole time. And I think now we're at the stage of being cute and dancing and just trying to stir up some more interest and say, oh, the offers are getting higher. But I think there's been somewhat of a stop put on some of these offers. I really don't think this is being bounced around at this point with 4 teams going, let's up it a little more. Let's up it a little more. I think that Boris might just be getting the price up a little bit for the New York Mets. There's scenarios, you always hear about this when it's the big money players that, oh, the Mets had the big offer at $650. And he said, the Red Sox say, name your price. And the Yankees are going to match up to this point. And now we got them to $701. And really $650 was always the highest offer. There's a great Zach Greinke story about this with Casey Close and how he got the Diamondbacks to pay way more money because they came in last minute. So anyway, that's my prediction. I think Steve Cohen has the most money to offer. And it's not just the money though, Derek. It is the payroll situation. The Mets are in a very favorable payroll spot right now. The Yankees aren't in as favorable of a spot. The Mets can afford to take on a $45, $50+ million a year player and not have it hurt as much, especially when David Stearns doesn't look like he's going to be in on some of the big ticket starters. It looks like his mindset going forward is going to be, let me get a bunch of these, quote, reclamation projects, a bunch, and on 1 and 2 year deals, Severino, Manaea, now Frankie Montas coming up. And that's going to cost me half the price of the Corbin Burns making $35 a year for the next 8+ years. So I think they've got this little crevice here in the payroll that is going to put them in a good position. And I know this is a Yanks show, but I just think they've got the highest bid.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Yankees fans who are going to be devastated to lose Juan Soto, but I think it's going to happen. And honestly, I'm not sure it's in the Yankees' best interest to hand out a 15-year contract to that guy. I'll give you a perfect example of, allocating resources in a way that some of the younger viewers will remember. When I was growing up around Christmas time, we would always get a gift card for about $50 to GameStop, right? And me and my brother would play Sega Genesis. And we had a choice, could we take our $50 gift cards and get like the 2 big new games, maybe like Madden and a Mortal Kombat, or could we maybe spread it out and get like 6 or 7 of the older games and build up our collection. And that's what we usually did. And then we would get like the Madden the next year and the, Mortal Kombat's like a year after they came out. They spread their resources. We spread our resources to like build, for the betterment of our entertainment. Would it be more entertaining and better for the team to go get let's say a Willie Adames, a Max Fried, a Cody Bellinger, and a Nico Horner, rather than spending $50 million on Juan Soto?
It's case by case. And with the Yankees, I probably agree with you. I'll just say I agree with you. I think there were so many holes in my mind for a team that made it to the World Series that you looked at their potential and said, man, if they fixed up this spot and had a better pitcher in this spot, they could have taken down the Dodgers. So yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think obviously Adames looks like a great fit because the Yankees had a clunky roster last year, and it's been a problem for a while. Jazz did okay, definitely exceeded expectations at third base. He's not getting traded. He should move to second base. So Adames makes a lot of sense at third base. Also, energy guy, just would be a good fit in New York. Bellinger, I know you've been big on this train. I am completely following you. I've hopped on that train. Would be a huge upgrade for them. I don't want the Yankees to go after Pete Alonso or Christian Walker. Agreed. Not because they're not good players. They're older players. The Yankees keep bringing in these older guys. It's less athletic. You got to wipe that away or at least counter that. I just didn't feel like they countered it enough. Also, guys that can really play baseball. I know Cody Bellinger is kind of a interesting reputation at times, but he does a lot of things well. He's fast. He plays great defense. His bat can be inconsistent at times, but that's a good fit for the Yankees. So here's my point. I'll take just a slightly different spin from what you're saying is if they sign up Juan Soto and he's back on the team, they still have to do some of these things. So it's really, are you going to pay top dollar and then push even more? Because otherwise, again, you're going to have this clunky roster problem. Can you get to the World Series again with Soto and company in a few tweaks? Yes. But I think the plan B for the Yankees could put them in just as good of a position. And I think the Yankees are going to be super aggressive if they don't get him because they're going to know how pissed off fans are.
The other thing about this 15-year contract to Juan Soto that we're, getting a lot of comments on is that there has been some issues in Major League Baseball with guys that are supposedly 26. We find out later they're 28, 29 years old. Alfonso Soriano comes to mind after the Yankees traded him for A-Rod. They released this press release. Oops, he was actually 29, not 25. And then we had a string of these guys, Fausto Carmona actually had a whole different name, whole different identity. Everybody thinks Albert Pujols is 63 years old. So, I mean, should Yankees fans or whoever signs Juan Soto be losing sleep over this? I don't think so. I mean, he looked a bit young to me, but, there is that possibility that, in a couple of years it's revealed, that he's a couple years older than we thought.
So I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I think with even past players, you're not going to get it. Like if they got through this long, you're probably not going to get exposed at this point. I think they're doing a little bit of a better job at cracking down right now. But now we're talking about players that have been in the league for a minute. Obviously, Albert's been in the league for a while. So it's a tough subject because you're looking around and you're like, okay, this guy at 19 looks like a 25-year-old in his prime, but he could just be a unicorn. So I just don't think you're ever going to get an answer on that. And so the bigger question is, how do we think his current body is going to age? That's it. Yeah. Is he going to be like Miguel Cabrera when he signed that last extension? I was debating that on Foul Territory the other day. They were like, he had good years after. I was like, he had a year and a half after that on like an 8-year extension. But for me, do I think Soto's still going to be a good player for a good chunk of time? Yes. And I can't emphasize this enough, Derek. When I say 16-year contract, do I expect Juan Soto to be good at 41, 42 years old? I don't even think he's going to be in the league at that point. The amount of players in the league at that stage, no. I think there's a chance in 6 years he could be a full-time DH. But if he's Big Papi for a while, that's okay. These deals are done over this length for one reason and one reason only. Average annual value, keep the salary cap, aka the luxury tax, down. That's it. That's why. Because otherwise, is right now, if you put like the amount of wins that he's worth and how the front offices do this, right, times the years, I don't know what the current rate is, but let's say it's $10 million per win and he's an 8-win player. So in their mind, he's worth $80 million, but nobody goes for that on the market. So they're like, well, he's worth 65 right now, but no one's going there. It's going to be 45 a year. Let's take that number and extract it as much as we can so that we don't have as much of a cap hit. And it's not just on how much money you have to give to owners like Bob Nutting of the Pirates. It's draft pick compensation penalties, international signing money. This affects the product on the field. So I wouldn't go too crazy over that. I can't believe anyone's getting 16 years. Don't think of it that way. Think of it as take the 10 years, right? So let's say it's 700. He's getting 70 mil for 10 years. Call that crazy, but do the math on his wins above replacement times the going rate, and it's probably pretty much in line.
That's an awesome way to look at it. Final question. I know you got to go. I asked this question to Robert Murray. He was on earlier in the show, and he didn't have an answer for it. He was stumped. I stumped Robert Murray. I'm going to see if I can stump Scott Braun. Who says no to this deal? Marcus Stroman, for Jordan Montgomery.
Wow. So just can you fill me on Stroman's situation left? Because I got to play the money game.
Stroman's got 1 year at, I believe, $18 million. And Jordan Montgomery's got 1 year at a little over 22. There might be some room to make, maneuver some dollars there. We know that Jordan Montgomery has pitched well in New York before. You're asking him to come in and be the number 5 starter and maybe, pick up some big innings. And Marcus Stroman is a guy who kind of faded down the stretch a little bit, but he, the Diamondbacks owner doesn't hate him. So, that's kind of where we're at. He wants to unload that contract. He would be willing to move some cash reportedly to do it. I think that's a perfect opportunity to get somebody who can pitch a whole season without wearing out, who's probably going to have a bounce back year. Let's be honest. Scott Boras ruined his year last year. He's going to have a bounce back year. Wouldn't surprise me he wins 15 games with a 3.7.
Okay, so the Diamondbacks definitely say yes to that deal because they're saving a little bit of money. They could use the innings. They still have guys that are pretty unreliable. I've always kind of been off the Eduardo Rodriguez train. I was against that signing last year. He often is not putting together full seasons. I don't know. There's a lot of checkered history with how he thinks about getting on the field every day. So it's a whole nother conversation.
He's got some Carl Pavano in him.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the perfect comp. So for Yankee fans, do you want Monty over Marcus Stroman? Yeah, there's probably a little bit more upside there. The money's close enough. So I'll give you that deal. I'll say yes on that deal. The one thing I'll go against you with, though, is after doing a lot of homework on this, and it's not just the Boras camp, it's others, I don't think Boras ruined the situation. He had a $100 million offer that's been reported on the table that was much earlier in the offseason. You can look it up. I believe it was 4 years, 100 from the Red Sox. He said no. 4 years, 100. Now, we thought he was going to get more of the mid 100s. It was a crappy market last year. But if you wanted that nice chunky deal more in the middle of the offseason, he could have gotten 100. Look it up. So in my mind, I think that he ultimately decided, I want to play the waiting game. Someone else is going to give me this number. And many of the other Boras clients did do that, took the 1 year opt out and were okay. I don't know if there was an opt out in that 4 year 100, but Jordan Montgomery had a pretty nice offer on the table. And he didn't want to go to Boston, whether it was because of the money or potentially also because of it being Boston. I don't know. Because a lot of people thought, oh, what is it? His wife was studying up there, whatever.
Yeah, he's going to school there or something.
There's a story to all of that. So that's all I'll say. That's the background that I got, that he had a nice offer on the table that anyone else would have taken, and he turned it down.
Well, that's very interesting. I did not know that. So we got to pay the light bill. We got to pay Scott Braun's gym membership. So we're going to go to a Storyworth ad. I tell you what, my wife just started doing that with her mom, and it's really cool. We're supporting Foul Territory. You guys should support Foul Territory. We just got over 66,000 subscribers. It'll help me and Scott keep our jobs if you go and subscribe and if you try some of these sponsors. So here's a word from Scott Braun and Eric Kratz and AJ Przinsky on Storyworth.
This holiday season, I want to give a gift to my loved ones that makes them feel special and unique. That gift is Storyworth.
Here's how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick. Things like, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? And what's the farthest you've ever traveled? All your loved one needs to do is respond with a story. Long or short, it doesn't matter. After that year of fun, Storyworth compiles those stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. This is the perfect book to pass along at family gatherings or read with your kids. It is beautifully orchestrated by Storyworth, and that's why it has more than 35,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago.
With Storyworth, I'm giving those I love most a thoughtful personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Go to storyworth.com/foul and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/foul to save $10 on your first purchase.
All right, we are back, and we're going to get to your voicemails. I hope you enjoyed that talk with Scott Braun, and special thanks to Robert Murray and Clint Pasillas for the conversations. Let's get to what's on your mind.
Hey, Derek, Austin. I just wanted to say something about this golden at-bat business. I was listening to the Michael Kay show. I heard Jack Curry's take on it. He doesn't like it. Buster Olney, I heard him. He doesn't love it either. I also agree. I don't love it. I think it changes the essence of the game too much. I get wanting to add excitement and do some things, but, to make everything, more exciting and get younger fans and stuff like that. But I will say this, if it did happen, I guess one of Jack Curry's main concerns is that, you've got a skewed stats, and stats are sacred, and what does that mean for records and everything like that. I think you could solve that by just separating the stats for the golden at bat, just make a separate category or just separate them from your standard stats. And just, take that out of your overall, regular season stats. If you get a golden.
I hear you. And he goes on to talk a little bit about his formula there, which I'm not going to play, but it just makes it too complicated. Look, the stats are the stats, the numbers are the numbers. You should be able to calculate them on the back of a napkin, not have to, know algebra. I was not good at algebra, okay? I would not do well with baseball stats if I had to bring in the algebra. I can figure them out in my head. When a guy goes 2 for 10, that's 200. But look, I just think that the golden at bat is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. What if you haven't used your golden at bat yet, right? And Aaron Judge hits a double to lead off the 9th inning, or a single to lead off the 9th inning. For double, they'd probably walk him if he went up. But let's say he hits a single, and then you want to send him up to hit again as the next batter, but he's on base. So do you put in a pinch runner? Is it a ghost runner? There's so many problems with this. You're giving him 160 more at bats per year. You tell me he's not going to hit 10 or 12 more home runs. You're going to break the home run record, but then you got to put an asterisk next to it. It's just stupid. The whole idea is stupid. It's not as dumb as getting your head stuck in a porta potty or, giving up your life to go live with bears and then getting eaten by one so that they have to identify you by your wristwatch, but it's pretty dumb.
Hey, Derek, this is Joe from Connecticut. Was just looking at some numbers, and it says the Yankees projected allocation for payroll, and that's what all the arbitrations are completed, are $229 million. You sign Soto, say it's between 45 and 50, and then everybody's paying Bellinger, which is 27.5. You're pretty much maxed out for what you could do for the entire offseason. Now, do you think that's the best move to go for Bellinger? Is that extra piece? Or is there a way we could get another piece with Bellinger too? Maybe getting rid of Stroman, Nestor. I don't know what other contract you could be able to get. Just want your opinion on this. And if there was any other way we could get more guys, because we kind of need more guys. Thanks.
This is exactly why I won't be heartbroken when I deliver my Juan Soto has signed with the New York Mets podcast, which is probably going to happen Sunday or Monday. I think that you need more than one or two pieces. I think the Yankees legitimately need 2 infielders, a first baseman, and either a second baseman or a third baseman. They need an outfielder. They could use more pitching. They got to refill the bullpen. And if you're giving $50 million to one guy or more, you just can't do it. You want to win the World Series, you got to build a team. It's not about one guy. It's not about 2 guys. It's about the team. Remember that, kids. No one is above the team. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be reconvening as soon as there is news. Sunday night, regardless of whether or not there's news, we're going to do a hot stove kickoff party with Terrence, my co-host from another coast. He's out west, and he'll be joining us to, kick off the winter meetings. But hopefully we'll have some news before then. Again, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you thought about any of the comments, any of the topics in this podcast, and I'll see you next time on Pinstripe Territory. Ball game over. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and give us a subscribe. It helps other Yankees fans find the channel. We're also on all your favorite podcast platforms and social media. Join the community, have some fun. We're here after every game. This is Pinstripe Territory.